Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm hoping everything is working. I just discovered that my audio is not coming from my desktop to my system, so that's kind of weird. I don't know why that's happening, but I'm hoping for the best here. It seems to be coming through to you guys, right? I think. I'm assuming.
Like on video,
You should be able to hear that, right?
frontier and people losing it at the desk, and you sit.
I think we're good. Okay, anyway, let's talk about what we're going to talk about, shall we? Just pull up my clip thing. Q tabs. I'm sorry. I hope I'm not boring you guys to shit. I'm just trying to copy my timestamps and get ready here. All right, let's talk about Greg Locke first. Open? Nope. Okay, good. Iran. All right, good. Now let me just shut this door here real fast. 1 second. Oh, shit. Okay. So Greg Locke is talking about the war in Iran and what's going on, and it is, as you would expect, absolutely psychotic. I pulled up his Twitter account here, and I have a video from the day that it happened, or the next day. He did like a Sunday stream or whatever. Check this out. I want to listen to some of his clips from this, but look at what he's saying on the twit. The modern-day Haman threatening to eradicate the Jews has been eliminated just a couple of days before the Feast of Purim begins. Here we are prophetically living in the book of Esther. I'm here for the whole thing. This is what disturbs me so much about Christian nationalists and about like Christian Zionists particularly. They are trying to reach a point where we face nuclear Armageddon. There is a silver lining behind every mushroom cloud with these people. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Iran will be free. This is historic and prophetic. As if he gives a fuck about the Iranians. He doesn't. He fucking hates Muslims. We all know that he doesn't like Iran. Why is he even pretending here? People are drunk on Jew hatred. It's disgusting. I'll stand against all of you, even if I stand alone. Such a victim. Oh, because we know that literally not one single human being, especially in the Christian nationalist circles, not one single Christian nationalist likes Israel. We know that. And he's fighting alone. The God of Israel approves this message. He speaks for God now, I guess. Every single person guilty of this wicked Epstein nonsense must be punished severely. Wow. I bet he's one of those people that's going to refuse to admit that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. I don't care who they are, what they do, or whose side of the aisle they're on. Arrest and imprison them all. And yes, many of them need to be executed. Jesus Christ. That is wild. Dude, his Twitter account is insane. Last night at the State of the Union, the Democrats were exposed to the entire world for their hatred and lack of concern for the American people. This is like a little bit older. They want chaos. They want division. They crave illegal activity and mayhem. They can never return to power. Anyway, let's listen to Greg Locke talk about Iran and what's going on over there. He's very, very excited, needless to say. All right, let's see.
And the greatest Goliath in the last days that the church will ever face is not Planned Parenthood. It's not the LGBT. It is when we stand for the Jewish people. Now, whether you get nervous or whether you do or don't come back, don't bother me one bit.
Oh, such a victim. He fights so hard All alone, not one person agrees with him, right? Look, I don't have a problem with the Jewish community at all. I stand with them fully. But Israel, the country of Israel, is committing a genocide right now. They aren't fighting anybody over there. They are literally just murdering people wantonly. It's horrifying. I stand completely behind people of all religions and races who want to live their lives the way that they want to live them. But the country of Israel is morally bankrupt completely. Just evil, the shit that they're doing. And we're going to war with Iran right now in the U.S. on behalf of Israel. As a matter of fact, Israel, I believe, was the one that actually pulled the trigger that killed Ayatollah Khamenei.
Because I'm here to tell you, a church that curses Israel will be under the curse of God. And a church that honors and blesses Israel will be under the blessing of God. The Bible's very plain in Genesis chapter 12. And for everybody that says he was only talking to Abraham, he secured that covenant promise in chapter 15. And then we'll see that it passed all the way down to the very moment I hold this microphone in this pulpit in Lebanon, Tennessee right now. Now, before I read, I must also say this. I think perhaps the Lord this morning told me to go this direction because what is happening in Iran is unbelievably prophetic, and some of you are going to miss it because you follow the wrong people on social media.
Oh, yeah. He does not like Candace Owens at all. Oh, my God. He hates her. He also doesn't like Stu Peters and a bunch of the others.
Tucker's telling you how
Tucker, can't stand him.
bad it is. Candace Owens is telling you how bad it is. The Hodge twins are telling you how bad it is. Even some people in the context of the White House around Donald Trump are telling you how bad it is. We've told you prophetically, and the word of the Lord teaches us practically that that regime will fall. The gospel will come into Iran. People will be saved, and there is no doubt in my mind.
So he says he wants to basically take over the Iranian regime so that he can spread the gospel in Iran. This is fucking psychosis, okay? This is unacceptable. This is religious war shit that we're dealing with right now. Do you know how many people there are in Iran? About 100 million. 100 million. Okay, that's about a third the size of the United States, maybe a quarter. That is insane, okay? This is not like fighting in Iraq, which cost us like $6 trillion. This is a completely different beast, okay? This is not something that you just walk into like we did. Do you know how big their army is? 1 million people, give or take. 650,000 foot soldiers and about 350,000 more reserves. I think the U.S. has 1.2 million active duty troops and another million reserves or something like that. Just think for a moment what that would be like. We go to war with Iran, boots on the ground, which it appears that we're going toward. And that cancels out half of our fucking army. Okay, this is not... Plus, they have the home field advantage. It's a mountainous region, right? We can't just march in there with our troops, drop people on the ground, and fight street by street. That is not how this fucking works. And if the U.S. military thinks they're going to take Iran easily, they are living in a delusional fantasy land. But we knew that about Donald Trump already. This is so above and beyond. Like, this isn't even comparable to Iraq. Not even close. Because Iran is fucking huge. People underestimate how ginormagantuan that place is. And how many people they have.
Into Iran, people will be saved. And there is no doubt in my mind that a regime change is on the way. This is unprecedented, and some of you are too mad about it to understand its biblical importance.
Dude, this is what I'm talking about. Christian nationalists controlling the government is so horrifying.
You see, everybody says, oh, this is Israel's war. This is the world's war. Israel is the only country in the Middle East that has kept back the tidal wave of an Islamic invasion, even in Western culture. That is the facts, whether people like that or not.
Give it a fucking rest. He fearmongers constantly about Islam invading everything. Well, what happened to this one, Greg? Hold on. Let me find the clip here. Greg. Here we go. Yeah, what about this?
London has fallen. Paris has fallen. I mean, places in Germany, we were just there a minute.
I'm sorry, hang on. Let me step back and fix the audio on it. Sorry.
London has fallen. Paris has fallen. I mean, places in Germany, we were just there a minute. It's falling to Islam, and America is getting very, very, very close. There are places in Texas, there's places in Dearborn, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota that are nearly fully Islamic. They're trying to institute all of their Sharia law.
It just complete and total, unadulterated delusion.
And people are like, well, that'll never happen. No, it is happening.
No, it's not.
Right before our very eyes, it's happening. The enemy of the world is Islam. 1,000%. And people are like, oh, you're a pastor, you shouldn't talk that way. Because I'm a pastor, I need to talk that way. Because
So anyway, the point is, I thought, what happened to Israel holding back the Islam? What happened? They're doing a piss poor job, apparently, according to you?
And what we are seeing play out right now in Iran is God proving to us what Proverbs 21:1 says. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, and as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. I've not even read the text yet, and I've already unloosened the tie. We're going to preach and have a good time.
Bro, you didn't read the text yet? This is literally 45 minutes into the fucking service. Into an hour and 38-minute service. You're literally over halfway through the service and you have not read, no, I guess halfway. You're halfway through the service, you haven't read the text yet? Are you just talking shit about Iran the entire time?
The warehouse today. What is happening is prophetic. Don't miss it because you're mad. Don't miss it because you got the wrong friends. Don't miss it because you don't understand it. Don't miss it because you're too busy watching the news and not in the word of the Lord. We're living in exciting days. Unbelievably exciting days where literally every day all you have to do is read the Bible and the newspaper and you'll figure out what both sides are up to. And God,
I don't know what that means,
is doing a work. And so in Psalm 105, he's going to show us the chronology of how he has kept his faithful covenant down through the centuries. Psalm 105 and verse 1.
So he's super excited about this war in Iran because he thinks that there's a mushroom cloud with a silver lining on the horizon. This is horrifying.
If you're ready, shout ready. He said, oh, give thanks unto the Lord. Call upon his name. That's good right there. Make known his deeds among the people. Sing unto him. Sing psalms unto him. You see, we read the psalms as scripture. They did then and now sing the psalms because the 150 psalms are the Hebrew hymn book. They sing these songs. Talk ye of all of his wondrous works. Doesn't Psalm 103 say, forget not all of his benefits? We could stay right there talking about the wondrous works of God. The fact that we are not in hell. The fact that we have good eyes and good ears and good hands and good legs. And
yeah, but some of us don't, right?
The breath of God in our bodies. He has been good to us. And if God never did another thing, he's already done enough. And I must remind you that when things aren't good, God still is. God.
What a ridiculous, empty fucking platitude, dude. Oh my God. Anyway, he mentioned Iran in another part of this. Let me just find it. Yeah, right here. Here, check this one out. We're going to step back just a little bit here. Where is it? I'm sorry, 1 second. Yeah, here we go, right here. See what he says.
He said, I'm going to give you the land. By the way, he promised them the land. Now, here's something that this gets a lot of people sideways. Can I whisper something? Right now, they possess much less land then God's actually given them.
Yeah, so this is verifying exactly what Tucker Carlson recently said, that they want to control everything from the Euphrates to the Nile River and that whole region, basically. They want to control all of that because they think that it's been given to them by God. That's psychotic. There are countries there, okay? People live there. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Lebensraum or something to that effect. It means living space. Germans were invading Czechoslovakia and Poland and all these other areas, Netherlands or Holland, because they believed they needed more living space. They wanted to expand out. That's what I'm hearing when I watch this shit.
Right now, they possess much less land than God's actually given them. And there will come a day they'll own all of it. They'll get the parts of Lebanon. They'll get the parts of Iran. They'll get the parts of Syria. They'll get a little bit of Turkey. They will get all that God has promised them because
they're going to get a little bit of Turkey. That's a big fucking deal, dude. Turkey is a NATO country. He's saying that Israel intends to take parts of a NATO country.
when Joshua walked the land, God said, I'm telling you right now, everything you can walk and everything you can see, I'll give it to you. And let me just say this by way of some vision casting. If you can see far, God will take you far. And the Bible says that God established his covenant with these people. He remembered it forevermore unto the land of Canaan. He said, it's all yours.
Yeah, but wasn't God's covenant transferred to Christians after, like, Jesus came and died for Christians' sins or whatever? I thought that the covenant was transferred. According to Christian Zionists, that's not the case.
That promised land, it's all yours. Now, let me just say something. I shared this with my wife this morning. This is just a moment of clarity for our church. Okay, everybody say global vision.
Global vision.
One more time.
Global vision.
So this is an application. I'm not writing a book or building a theological premise on this, okay? But I find it interesting that in order to come into Canaan land, they had to conquer the Canaanites.
Okay, well, here's the problem with that. The Canaanites lived in the same region as the Israelites, and there's a lot of cultural mixing. And in fact, the Jewish God, Yahweh, was a Canaanite god. He was, I believe, their storm god or something like that. There was so much cultural mixing, and there were a lot of gods around. So this one god, basically, in their stories, made an agreement with them. If you serve only me and not these other gods, just me, then I will protect you. That was the agreement. And here we are, I don't know, 3,000 years later or whatever, and we've got people invading fucking 100 million person countries for these myths. Insane.
Now, there is no official group today called the Canaanites.
Yeah, because they genocided them.
But
And actually, I think that there are some Canaanites around. I could be wrong. You know what? No need to wonder. Just loaded up our question gun. Let's go answer hunting. Give me a second here. See if I can find an answer to this. Are there any Canaanites around? Yes, there are. There are Canaanites. Multiple peer-reviewed genetic studies, 2017 in American Journal of Human Genetics, 2020 in Cell, have sequenced ancient Canaanite DNA and compared it to modern populations. The Lebanese are essentially Canaanites. Present-day Lebanese people are largely descended from the ancient Canaanites, inheriting more than 90% of their genetic ancestry from them. The remaining percentage came from later Eurasian migrations, Assyrians, Persians, Macedonians, so on and so forth. Not to be confused with Magadonians or Magapotamians. They're completely different things. Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my camera right here. Zoom in a little bit on this puppy. Here we are. Puppy has been zoomed. Oh.
Official group today called the Canaanites. But I find it interesting. Did you know there is a group of people, there's a country, that has 90% DNA connection
Wow, okay. Yeah, it's the Lebanese.
to the Canaanites? You ready for it? It's Lebanon. The Lebanese people have 90% DNA connection to the Canaanite. And I read that this morning, and I came and I told my wife over a cup of coffee, and I'm going to cry about it right now. It may be just an application, but I said the Lord has sent us in to conquer these Lebanites. Amen for the God.
Holy fucking shit, dude. Do you realize what he just said? He is calling for the genocide of the Lebanese because God had the Canaanites genocided in the Old Testament, but they didn't get them all. That is fucking dark. That is really fucking dark.
Gospel of Jesus Christ. Lebanon shall be ours. God moved us from Egypt to the promised land, church. He moved us to the promised land. So that's just Lockeology right there. Let's get back to the Bible. Amen. That was just a little parenthesis.
That's fucking horrifying. Seriously. Deuteronomy 20:16-17. But if the cities of these people, which the Lord thy God doth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth, but thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy God hath commanded thee. Greg Locke just called for genocide. Jesus fucking Christ, dude.
But it felt good. Verse 12. When they were few, but in number, a number of men in number, just few, just not a lot of them, a couple million. Yea, very few. And they were what? They were strangers in it. They came into a land that they were strangers in. And sadly, the American church still wants them to be strangers to it. Israel has no right to exist. Anybody ever called you a Zionist? Put your hand up. I'm just teaching this morning. Called you a Zionist?
Well, that's their ideological belief. It's not an insult. I'm not trying to insult him, but that's actually what he is, right? He's a Christian Zionist.
That is not a bad phrase. I like it. God's a Zionist.
Right. I don't know why he would be offended by that.
It's like when the buzzword back in COVID was when, CNN came to our tent like 8 times. We should have got married. We were dating like every week, right? And they were like, well, are you a Christian nationalist? That became a buzzword. Everybody was afraid of it. Now the buzzword is, oh, you're a Zionist. Yep. You know what a Zionist is? By the way, Zion's in the Bible. Over and over and over. It's still a place right now. It's in the Bible over. And everybody says, well, the reason the Bible talks about Zion and Zionism and Mount Zion is because C.I. Scofield changed the Bible. If you believe that, you ought to sue your brain for non-support. That is the most ridiculous argument on the planet.
Okay, yeah, so you may be unfamiliar with this argument. I need to grab some of these clips real fast. Let me just I'm sorry, give me a second to grab some of these. Let's see, where did it say?
Called you a Zionist. That is not a bad phrase. I like it. God does. Anybody ever called you a Zionist? Which have no right to exist. Anybody?
Okay, here. I'm going to start right here.
In Lebanon, Tennessee. Anybody? I got Bibles from the 1400s.
Yeah. Actually, I'm going to wait on that clip. Let me just grab this other one.
And you know what they say? Right now, they possess much less land than God actually given them. And there will come a day, they'll own all of it. They'll get the parts of Lebanon, they'll get the parts of Iran, they'll get the parts of Syria, they will get all that God has promised them. Because when Joshua walked the land, God said, I'm telling you right now, everything you can walk and everything you is covenant with these people. He remembered it for a moment of clarity for our church. Okay, everybody say global vision? Yes, okay? But I find it nice. Now, there is no that has 90% DNA connection. Us from Egypt to the promised land, church!
Yeah, this works.
So that's just Lockeology right there. Let's get back to the Bible.
Yeah, let me just... Greg Locke says the Lebanese should be genocided. I'm going to cut all of this out because it's not really relevant for... I'm just trying to grab the clips. I'll come back for the Iran stuff.
Oh, yeah. That was just a little...
All right. And then current position. Okay, cool.
By the way,
where was I?
if you believe that, you ought to sue your brain for...
The Schofield Reference Bible, what he's referring to here, it was written, I think, in the 1800s during like the Second Great Awakening. It was like a moment of intense religious fervor in the United States, basically. And the Schofield Reference Bible established a dispensationalist position. Hang on, Reference Bible. Let me just clarify something here. The Schofield Reference Bible had a lot of changes to it. It established the concept of dispensationalism, and it also added in a bunch of anti-gay stuff that wasn't translated that way before. So until the 1800s, the Bible didn't really support this homophobic message to the degree that it does today. Now, regarding dispensationalism, dispensationalism is basically the idea that it's basically Christian Zionism. It's the idea that time came in segments, I think like 7 segments, and the promises made to the Jews. Hang on, let's see. It's a theological framework that divides all of Bible history into distinct periods or dispensations, where God supposedly deals with humanity in different ways during each era. The system was developed primarily by John Nelson Darby in the 1830s. The 7 dispensations typically go something like this: innocence in the Garden of Eden, conscience after the fall, human government after the flood, promise, Abraham, law, Moses, grace, the current church age, and the millennium kingdom, the future. Israel and the church are separate is one of the big concepts presented. Dispensationalists believe God has 2 distinct programs, one for Israel, one for the church. The rapture, dispensationalists invented the pre-tribulation rapture. That idea did not exist before the Schofield Reference Bible, basically. It's not a coherent doctrine. Darby assembled it from scattered proof texts. It was nonsense. Prophetic literalism. They read Revelation, Daniel, and Ezekiel as a literal roadmap for future events. The dark irony here, though, is that the dispensationalist endgame, they need Jews to be in Israel to trigger the second coming. But then 2/3 of Jews die in the tribulation, and the rest convert to Christianity. That's the concept. So he's talking about the Schofield Reference Bible positively here, it seems, because he adheres to the beliefs espoused in the Schofield Reference Bible. That's the bottom line. Now let's just continue listening here.
Zion and Zionism and Mount Zion is because C.I. Schofield changed the Bible. If you believe that, you ought to sue your brain for non-support. That is the most ridiculous argument on the planet. By the way, you know where C.I. Schofield lived? He lived in Lebanon, Tennessee.
Okay.
In Lebanon, Tennessee. And everybody's like, well, C.I. Schofield changed the Bible. Do you know in our museum, you know I got Bibles from the 1400s.
Okay. This is all very recent theology. I hope he's not pretending that this Zionism thing was supported until fairly recently. This is all nonsense. You know that the concept of original sin wasn't even really added to the Christian theology until fairly recently in the grand scheme of things?
And you know what they say? Zion, 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 Zion,
Yes, obviously, that was the fucking word for Israel.
Zion, Zion. You know why? Because a Zionist is a person that simply believes that the Bible teaches Israel has a right to exist in the land God gave them. That's a Zionist.
Nope. A Zionist is somebody who believes, well, let me rephrase. A Christian Zionist is somebody who believes that the Jews must control Israel before Jesus can return. He doesn't give a fuck about Jews, actually. In fact, he's waiting with bated breath until the day that they all die a brutal, ugly death at the hands of God's angels. He can't wait for that day. That's why he supports Zionism in the first place, because he wants that to happen.
So who cares if they label you? I've been labeled worse. Could care less. Are you a Zionist? 1,000%. And Jesus is one too. Let's keep reading.
Jesus Christ, dude. Get fucking help. He literally just wished for genocide. Openly. And established a biblical foundation for that position. That is insane. Tell me what you think in the comments. Greg Locke needs help. Really. That's horrifying. All right, now let me just export some of these clips so I don't forget. So let's see. Where was the Iran clip? Right here.
Because what is happening in Iran is unbelievably prophetic and some.
Here we go. He pronounces it correctly. That's interesting. Where does it start? Here?
Time, and the greatest Goliath in the last days that the church will ever face is not Planned Parenthood. It's not the LGBT. It is when we stand for the Jewish people. Now, whether you get nervous or whether you do or don't come back, don't bother me one bit. Because I'm here to tell you, a church that curses is the world's war. Israel, God proving to us what Proverbs 21:1 says. The king's heart is in the hand of the Lord, and as the rivers of water, he turneth it whithersoever he will. I've not even read the text yet, and I've already loosened the tie. We're going to preach and have a good time in the warehouse today.
Yep. I'm going to grab this. Locke talks about Iran. And then the second one. I'm sorry. I don't normally do this while I'm streaming, but I just don't want to forget this. Did I already grab this clip? I think I did. Yeah. Okay. Markers. Yes. Here we go. Grab all three. Nope. Markers. All right. I will export these two. And process all. Awesome. That is really horrifying, dude. Let me write down my timestamp on that. It was 32 minutes, roughly. And then my tabs. So Greg Locke is done. Let's talk about Sam Harris, shall we? Open. Nope. That's not what I meant to do. Hold on. Sorry. Scott Galloway. Open. Here we are. Okay. Okay, as it turns out, Sam Harris, I didn't know this, is a massive Zionist and supports the war in Iran, believe it or not.
I honestly think Iran is much less likely to blow back on us the way Iraq and Afghanistan did. I just think that...
I'm sorry, dude. What? Are you kidding me? Sam Harris is famous for supporting Iraq, the Iraq War, which was insane, in my opinion. And now he's saying we need to attack Iran. Do you have any idea how many people there are in Iran? There are about 100 million people in Iran, compared to the United States, 350 million. 100 million people. Their army is total about 1 million foot soldiers. That is something that we can't even reckon with. Like something that's such a big number of people, you can't conceptualize it. The United States has 1.2 million foot soldiers on active duty and about another 1 million in reserve. Imagine how many people we would lose fighting in Iran. That shit is wild. It is absolutely wild. Hang on, I'm sorry. I'm getting rid of somebody on the channel that I saw. Anyway. It's absolutely wild to me that this dude did not learn his lesson from Iraq, but to compare it to Iraq at all is insane.
A majority of the people are in a different spot with their desperation to be rid of theocracy, right? It's a much more sophisticated culture that has been oppressed for for now more than a generation. You can't say that about Afghanistan, right? You can't even say that about Iraq, and Iraq was more sophisticated than Afghanistan. I do think it's a different situation. It's like, if you're going to talk about the prospect of nation building, is probably, ironically, this is probably a good opportunity that we can't possibly take, given how bad our experience was previously. But I think it's worth assuming that the majority of the Iranian people want something like a secular democracy.
Okay, that's a tall claim. I'm not sure that's the case, and I don't know how you can be so sure that that's the case. But you know what? Okay, that doesn't change the fact that it's run by clerics. You know, Ayatollah Khamenei was just killed, and he was like the religious leader of the country. He was 86 years old. You think they didn't have a line of succession already set up? You think they didn't have 2,000 other clerics set up and trained and ready to step in when this dude died? Again, he was 86 years old. Obviously, they had somebody set up and ready to step in. Absolutely absurd to me that he would say such a ridiculous thing. Oh yeah, and by the way, you know what happens when there's a power vacuum, when the leader of a country is killed and there's a true power vacuum, which is not the case here because there are other clerics. You know what happens in that case? The most brutal, ugly, evil, criminal organizations and leaders and enterprises step in to fill the power vacuum. Whoever is the most brutal and has the most guns is going to step in to fill that power vacuum. Again, that's not going to happen here because they already have a line of succession. Sorry, I was in the washroom. No sweat. I just saw it and I figured I'd get it. There are like 5 mods in chat now anyway who could have gotten it instead. It's insane that he would say such a thing. You know, I watched Sam Harris through... Well, I wasn't really politically aware yet through the Iraq War. I was too young. But after the Iraq War, during Obama, that's when I started to kind of get a little more politically aware during Obama. I saw Sam Harris talking about some kind of psychotic stuff, saying things like, maybe we should torture, maybe we should racially profile. I didn't read too much into it because I felt like he was trying to make an intellectual argument and failing miserably. I didn't feel there was bad intent. But I'm listening to this dude say, we need to invade Iran, and I don't know how else to read this other than you are the stupidest motherfucker alive who does not learn from your mistakes.
Or something, something that would be recognizably secular and democratic.
Absolutely insane. So I start going down this rabbit hole to find more interesting stuff from Sam Harris on this subject. Check this out.
Are you familiar with Alec Laban?
This is Scott Galloway talking about the moral color code, where they're about to try to explain why they think ahead of time that the left is going to support Iran, fly Iranian flags, and say Iran is the best and all of that shit, which is complete delusion. Nobody is saying the Muslim establishment in Iran should be protected. Not one single fucking person on the left. At best, they're saying what I'm saying, which is stay out of it. Give them support, the people, to the best of our ability, but we don't have any place going into Iran and trying to do regime change. What is our national debt right now? 38 trillion fucking dollars? $38 trillion. Where are we even getting the fucking money to send boats over to Iran right now? And aside from that, do you know how much it would cost to outfit the entire United States in fully renewable energy? Like, no more fossil fuels at all. No more coal, no more natural gas, no more oil, no more nothing. You know what it would cost? About $6 trillion. You know what it would cost to outfit the entire world in fully renewable energy? 0 fossil fuels, about 30 trillion. And our debt is 38 trillion. What did we spend it on? Killing brown people. Okay, so listen to what Sam Harris, listen to this intellectual tell us what he thinks.
Are you familiar with Alec Laban?
No.
She's a really impressive, she's an author or just a commentator, but I saw some content of hers and it kind of reminded me of you. And she has something she calls the moral color code. And it's not about the oppression of people or how severe or widespread the oppression or the horror is. It's about the color of the skin of the oppressor that mandates or deems the reaction from the West and progressive media. And she uses Iran as an example that the left goes into moral paralysis when the oppressor is brown. And that
I'm not in moral paralysis. I don't give a fuck what color their skin is. I care about the fact that we have no fucking business over there. We should have stayed out of Iraq. We should have stayed out of all of the shit going on over there, okay? I'm sorry. We should have stayed out of all of the shit going on over there, okay? All of it. But okay, go on. Continue to tell me how I'm the problem as the United States invades Iran.
Yeah.
if you look at what's happening in Iran, Iraq, Sudan, on and on and on, versus that inspires a muted reaction versus an oppressor that's conflated with being rich and white, specifically Israel, that they're just entirely different reactions. And I thought of you. Any thoughts?
Yeah. And I mean, if one thing can.
Absolutely absurd. Like, I'm so disappointed to see Sam Harris so completely pulled into this ridiculous, nonsensical garbage. But I think he's been there the entire time, to be perfectly honest. And I just didn't know it.
Joe is a genuinely good guy who wants
Talking about Joe Rogan.
good things for people. But he is honestly in over his head on so many topics of great consequence, right? When he brings someone on to just shoot the shit about, how the Holocaust is not what you think it was, right? Maybe Churchill's the bad guy in World War II.
Is that Tucker?
Or he's got Dave Smith, being treated as an expert on Israel and Palestine and the history of that conflict and the moral emergency that came to the world's attention on October 7th, and what is appropriate to think in the aftermath of all of that, right? Dave Smith
He's talking about a dude who went on Rogan and spread a bunch of Holocaust denial shit.
The only reason why anyone knows what Dave Smith thinks about any of this is very likely because Joe had him on multiple times to talk about it, right? He's a pure misinformation artist and on top of many others. And when Joe talks to someone like Trump or Tucker Carlson or any of these other guys who lie as freely as they breathe and doesn't push back against any of their lies. In fact, in Trump's case, really fairly energetically helped put his lies into the most plausible possible shape. It is irresponsible. I mean, it is directly harmful.
This dude, of all people, talking about how harmful it is to spread lies and misinformation as he's encouraging people to support war in Iran, of all places. Really. Listen to this clip. This is actually interesting. This one, I believe, is from Tim Dillon, who's some conservative scumbag. But it's kind of funny. He draws an interesting parallel here.
It's not left or right. For example, Sam Harris, who's a liberal but critical of Islam, who runs a meditation app, but also believes that Israel should just bomb anyone at any time that it thinks. It is hilarious to be a guy who runs a meditation app, and he spends half the time telling people about breathing and how to self-actualize, and the other half of the time telling people that we need to bomb as many children as humanly possible until Israel feels comfortable. That's just an interesting archetype of person. I want you to breathe in and out. Breathe in and out. I want to start from your breath and start from your breathing. What we need to do is indiscriminately bomb women and children. We need to indiscriminately bomb women and children right now. Imagine you're a drone. Feel the freedom of being a drone. Where would you fly if you were a drone? Iran? I think you'd fly right to Iran. You'd fly to Iran and eliminate their nuclear capability. You'd do it before you even had the chance to find a diplomatic solution. I want you to breathe. I want you to breathe in and out.
You know what's sad? We had a diplomatic solution. It existed. It was called the Iran nuclear deal. And John Kerry worked tirelessly to establish it. And then Donald Trump gets in power and he rips it up. Great fucking job. When they ripped up the Iran nuclear deal, it was basically a guarantee that war would follow. There's no other way out of this other than war. Zolfnar, why no super chats anymore? Conservative still. You cannot tell me that you're a conservative still after all of this shit. There is absolutely no way in hell. I don't believe you. That is fucking insane. Anyway, Sam Harris, deeply disappointing human being. I'm so just blown away by how insane that shit is. To support the war in Iran right now is wild. I'll say it for any conservatives listening. Khomeini was a monster. Okay, the entire Iranian regime is monstrously evil. I don't support it in any way, shape, or form. It's none of our fucking business, okay? Stay out of it. We have a $38 trillion debt. We don't need another war. Half our aircraft carriers are over there. How much did it cost to just move them over there? To just man them and put them near Iran. How much did that shit cost? Insane. Tell me what you think in the comments. All right, so let's see. Get rid of Locke. Get rid of Sam Harris. Let's cover this one next. Open. All right. Good. Let me just... Sorry, hold on. I'm just trying to organize these well. I'm not sure if you guys heard, probably by now, but Ayatollah Khomeini is dead because the United States is waging war against Iran with Israel. As somebody on the left, let me put my position on record. I don't support war at all, ever. No more war. What happened to the peace president who received the FIFA Peace Prize and wanted the Nobel Peace Prize? What happened to that? Anyway, they went to war with Iran. They killed Ayatollah Khomeini. There are 1,000 other clerics going to step into his shoes, so I don't even know what they accomplished with that, except for pissing off Iran. While this happens in the United States, while this is going on.
I had my annual physical yesterday. I'm 65 years old. I'm legally blind. I'm on disability. I went to my doc, and I lost 28 pounds in the last year. I did not need to lose 28 pounds. I did not try to lose 28 pounds. I lost the 28 pounds because I cannot afford to eat anymore. Under Biden, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Under Biden, I was able to put $100 a month away for food, along with my SNAP, and I did okay. I could get fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, and meat. It is just me. But now, with grocery prices so high, propane, electricity out of this world, I now only allow myself $65 a month for food.
Sharon, are you on SNAP benefits?
Let me tell you, under Joe Biden, I received $80 a month for SNAP. That was taken away from me.
$80 a month is practically nothing. I mean, think about how much that is per day. That's $2.60 per day for food. That's 88 cents per meal. How are you supposed to survive off of that? You're not, obviously.
Under Donald Trump. He took it away. He gave me $24 a month. I did receive that for a couple of months. Then he took it down to $12.50 a month. I said, screw you. So I'm not doing that no more. So now I get $65 a month, Mimi. And for them people out there, all these Republicans that are doing so flippin' well right now, I have 3 potatoes. I have a half a tomato. I have 3 bananas, 1 apple, 1 can of soup, a half a loaf of bread, 1 egg, and 1 can of green beans. I do not get paid until the 3rd. I am disability blind. I cannot drive a car. I'm 15 miles out of town, so I am not able to just trot my butt down to the food shelf.
This is not rare. This is an incredibly common situation in the United States right now. While the United States is spending billions, bare minimum, on sending aircraft carriers to Iran to fight a war that nobody fucking wants, while that goes on, people are starving.
I used to volunteer at the food shelf. I can't even do that anymore. I don't understand. I'd like somebody to explain to me, why is it always the poor people that are helping the poor people? I don't understand. But what I want to say, Mimi, is that it's really close to coming. Like that man said, the end is coming near, and it can't be any more true for me.
The point is, we're all suffering terribly, much more than we should be. For what? What's the end goal here? What are we trying to accomplish? What are we getting out of this? Now, Tucker Carlson is an actual Nazi, so I don't like siding with him to any degree ever, but listen to what he had to say about Iran.
Everybody knows the only reason we're having this war is because Israel wants it. This is their last chance. They
That is absolutely true. Like, that's not even up for debate.
believe this presidency is the last presidency where they're going to have unequivocal bipartisan support, period. You can't primary every Thomas Massey, and there's a whole army of them coming at some point because everyone can see what's going on. And you can shut down X, and you can shut down the internet. You can be like Great Britain and arrest people who protest Israel, but attitudes are not going to revert to what they were 5 years ago. Sorry. And they know this. So this is their last chance. What's so amazing is that Israel, which at least is acting in what it perceives to be its own national interest, is joined by its shills in the United States, of course. But really, its only other ally in this is the American news media, whose job it is to tell you the truth. And
I mean, I'm not sure which news he's even referring to here. I'm not sure what news is supporting the war in Iran. I don't consider Fox News or Newsmax to be news. They're not. They're political commentary, obviously. The news is not supporting it, is it?
inform you as to what's happening, to tell you, hey, wake up. The world could be changing, and it's going to affect you and your family. That's their job. And instead, they've been lulling you to sleep with the same variety of transparent lies and propaganda.
So Tucker is obviously opposed to the war in Iran, fascinatingly. But seeing some of these other shills who are in favor of it is actually wild. Listen to Lindsey Graham.
Senator, let me ask you, because the president's opposition to regime change and war, quite frankly, was central to what he described as his America First agenda. On Saturday, former Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene wrote this, quote, "We said no more foreign wars, no more regime change. We said it on rally stage after rally stage, speech after speech. Trump, Vance, basically the entire administration campaigned on it and promised to put America first and make America great again."
Isn't that fascinating? I don't like being on the side of Tucker Carlson, and I sure as hell don't like being on the side of Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I don't even consider myself on their sides. But they're correct on this issue. People don't fucking want this.
Did the president's strikes on Iran go against everything that he promised the American people, Senator?
quite the opposite. He promised to keep us safe.
You know, he literally promised no more wars. That's the phrase that he used. He said no more wars. He even took credit for withdrawing us from Afghanistan when he didn't.
To stand up to people who would hurt America. She's a former congressman for a reason. What is...
Yeah, because she quit because Donald Trump harassed her into solitude, into exile.
The people who would hurt America. She's a former congressman for a reason. What is it? America First is the following. Make sure that no regime who wishes to hurt America can. To make sure that they don't have a ballistic missile capability to attack our country. They have American blood on their hands. We destroyed their missile program, the nuclear program. They were coming right back at it.
Oh, please.
America First is not isolationism. America First is not head in the sand. America First is not to get entangled. We're not going to have any boots on the ground in Iran.
You say that now.
But America First is to kill people who wish us ill with a record of trying to destroy us in the region.
Thought crimes? Kill people who wish us ill? Is this really the position that you want to establish?
To take them off the table. Celebrate today, please, my Democratic colleagues, that the most evil man on the planet is no more.
Absolutely fucking disgusting. Do you know, I'm going to have to verify this. Actually, I'm going to verify it before I say it. Hold on. Just want to verify this. Hold on 1 second here. Iran, believe it or not, helped us fight ISIS. I don't know if you guys knew that. Iran helped us fight ISIS because they are Shia Muslim, and ISIS, or Daesh as they called themselves, is Sunni Muslim. And Shias and Sunnis don't get along. The guy who Trump killed last time around, was it Soleimani? I think that was his name, the general. He helped us fight ISIS. And here we are on the other side attacking Iran. What has Iran actually done to us? Nothing. Let me just verify that as well. Aside from the occasional, retaliatory, escalatory missile launch or whatever, which Iran always notified us about ahead of time, they haven't done anything to us in a long time. 1979 to 1981, the Iran hostage crisis is probably the most famous. Iranian students backed by the regime held 66 Americans hostage at the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. No one was killed. I think they held them for like a year or something. In 1983, in Beirut, Lebanon, Iran-backed Hezbollah drove a truck bomb into a Marine compound in Beirut, killing 220 U.S. Marines. This is 1983. This is a proxy attack, not the Iranian military. In January 2020, Iran launched a direct ballistic missile attack against the Ain al-Assad airbase in Iraq, causing more than 100 U.S. traumatic brain injuries. Wow. This was retaliation for the U.S. assassinating Soleimani. No U.S. troops were killed. 2023 to 2024, Iran-backed militias initiated over 170 attacks on U.S. military bases in Syria, Iraq, and Jordan in response to U.S. support for Israel during the Gaza war. So they have done some limited attacks in the past 5 to 10 years, but before that it was 1983. And again, we had a deal with Iran, a nuclear deal. They were following the deal. They never violated it once. They wanted to be left alone. Check this one out.
And I woke up in America feeling so much safer now that Donald Trump bombed an elementary school. Thank God he killed over 50 little girls at an elementary school. We're all so much safer for it. The world is a better place for it.
Yeah, I don't know if you heard about that, but they bombed an elementary school with 50 girls in it. An elementary school. Super pro-life of them, right?
I'm already seeing so many comments saying, he needed to do this, guys. He needed to do this. He needed to bomb this elementary school. He needed to kill all those little kids. That was necessary. Just like we needed to kill little kids in Gaza, right? right? And this is why I get so frustrated when I see Trump's fan base, a bunch of pro-life people fighting so hard to protect fetuses. But when stuff like this happens, they'll say, you know, it's a really hard decision, but it had to happen. But they don't say that about abortions. They say it about brown kids, though. I'm just ready.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ready to hear all the excuses about why this was so necessary and how we needed to bomb that elementary school with little kids in it.
They haven't even given us an excuse so far as I know. I haven't seen an excuse. They're just fucking killing people because they like to, apparently. I don't know what else to call this. Absolutely fucking wild. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. This is ugly. Very, very ugly. These people are fucking evil. All right. Let's see. What's the next one? Tabs. Iran. Delete tab. I'm sorry. I'm just looking here. I want to hit Jehovah's Witnesses. Actually, you know what? I'm going to... Nah, never mind. I was curious about what's going on with Jehovah's Witnesses in Israel because I didn't realize this, but it's heavily regulated how much you can proselytize. Like going and knocking on doors, not easy in Israel. And it's illegal in some cases. So I was wondering, like, how are Jehovah's Witnesses in Israel managing? Check this article out. This is titled A Rare Glimpse into the Insular World of Israeli Jehovah's Witnesses. It's written by Haaretz, which is an Israeli newspaper. I think Haaretz is generally pretty well trusted. Let me just verify that. Hold on. Yeah, Haaretz is a pretty trustworthy source generally. So let's give this a listen. This was written in 2016. Yarden Zilemansky is only 25, but comports himself like a staid older citizen. He's been married for a few years and wears a white shirt, tie, and dark slacks to our meeting. He has a tablet open to a Bible app and speaks in a deeply serious tone of voice. Until age 19, he styled himself as an atheist. Now he's a member of Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay. He grew up in Tel Aviv in a secular family. 1 Holocaust and 3 cases of cancer was enough for the loss of God, and majored in film at an arts high school. I was always interested in history and in religions, and I used to talk to a friend about it. One day, while I was in the army, she told me she was studying Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses. Right, because here's the interesting thing about Israel. Everybody is required to go through the IDF. It's like mandatory conscription. Everyone has to be a part of it. And Jehovah's Witnesses are not recognized as a religion in Israel and don't get a religious exemption. So they are legally mandated to go through it as well. They have no choice. I was bent on stopping her, but as we went on talking, I saw that what I believed in was incorrect and that she had tools to prove that her belief was right, he relates. No, they do not have tools to prove that they're correct. I'm just trying to look for something. What did you find in Jehovah's Witnesses that you didn't find elsewhere? Quote, one thing that bothered me in most religions is that at a certain stage you're requested to stop asking questions, and I had plenty of concrete questions. You're told not to ask questions when you join, like, Judaism? Okay. For example, I couldn't understand the Holy Trinity in Catholicism and felt that my questions about it were not welcome. No, I think you're more than welcome to ask questions about any of this shit. Catholics are more than eager to explain it to you. I'm not even sure what he's talking about. Jehovah's Witnesses actually stop you from asking questions. You will face discipline if you ask too many questions. In Jehovah's Witnesses, I can always ask questions and get answers from the Bible. They don't call for blind faith, but base themselves on evidence and on asking questions. Okay, what the hell is this? This is absurd. Most of the adherents I met while researching this article told a similar story. They discovered the creed via a friend, a pamphlet they came across, or another witness who opened my eyes, quote unquote. Initially skeptical, they were gradually won over and decided to devote themselves to this mix of Judaism and Christianity. The approximately 1,600 members of the community in Israel obey the laws of the country, pay their taxes, and believe that they're upstanding citizens, but refuse to fulfill one national obligation: to perform military service, as they explain below. Now, regarding military service, conscription in Israel, Jehovah's Witnesses in Israel have their military service postponed for several years, after which they receive an exemption, apparently. They're in the same category as ultra-Orthodox yeshiva students and Druze religious students, groups that have reached an arrangement with the military. Interestingly, though, Jehovah's Witnesses are not eligible for the National Service Program, the civilian alternative where volunteers work for 2 years in schools, hospitals, or NGOs. So they don't serve military or civilly. They just get exempted entirely. That's surprising. This is according to the U.S. Department of State. This is also notable because the Watchtower Association's request for official recognition as a religion in Israel was rejected by the Ministerial Committee for Internal Affairs. So Jehovah's Witnesses aren't even a recognized religion in Israel. Let's keep reading here. As with witnesses abroad, they believe in the Hebrew Bible, the Torah, prophets, writings, which they call the Hebrew Scriptures, and also in the New Testament, or the Christian Greek Scriptures in their terminology. This is written on Haaretz, I think, by a Jewish person. Both together constitute the Bible. According to them, at the end of the 1st century CE, after the New Testament was written, God ceased to reveal himself to mankind. Accordingly, all the answers about faith, way of life, prohibitions, and commandments can be found in the Bible. Every other interpretation, such as that relating to Holy Trinity or full delineation of the laws of kashrut, are later additions and therefore not part of the religion of Jehovah's Witnesses. Given the community's belief in the sanctity of the Hebrew Bible, it's surprising to discover that there are many precepts that Jehovah's Witnesses do not follow, such as an observance of the 3 festivals, Sukkot, Pesach, and Shavuot, I assume is how it's pronounced, or circumcision, which is permitted but not mandatory. Their explanation is that, according to the prophecies of Daniel, when the Messiah, namely Yeshua or Jesus, comes, the offering of sacrifices will be stopped at the temple. The offering of sacrifices will be stopped and the temple destroyed. And from that moment, the followers, i.e. Jehovah's Witnesses, are no longer subjected to the Torah's precepts. The community takes its name from Isaiah 43:10. You are my witnesses, declares Jehovah. Yes, my servant whom I have chosen, from the 2013 edition of Jehovah's Witnesses' New World Translation of the Bible. As we know, J's didn't exist until the 1400s, so God's name is, beyond a shadow of a doubt, absolutely not Jehovah, and it never was. It was Yahweh. Not pronounced quite like that. I think it was Yahweh is how it's actually pronounced at the time and region or whatever. But the point is, I find it interesting that Jews in Israel don't seem to have a problem with saying the term Jehovah's Witnesses, because they know that's not God's name. They won't say God's name usually. One word that irks them in particular when used in their context is cult. Contrary to the prevailing view in Israel, Jehovah's Witnesses have no guru. They are not asked to transfer all their assets to the community, and no attempt is made to cut them off from friends. Are you shitting me right now? This is a joke. No. This is absolutely absurd. They're defining cult as somebody that has... or they're defining cult as a group that has a single leader that takes all of your shit and doesn't cut you off from family and friends. First of all, that's not what a cult is. Second, they absolutely do cut you off from friends and family. What are you talking about? This is ridiculous. Still, it's difficult for them to maintain full ties with their families, as they're forbidden by their faith to celebrate holidays, whether Jewish or Christian, as well as birthdays. Families who want to meet with their converted relatives do so on non-celebratory occasions. Okay. From the culinary aspect, hosting them is easy. Other than raw and very rare meat and an injunction to go easy on drinking wine, they are free to eat anything. Yeah, that's true. smiling from ear to ear. This is something that everyone notices when they meet a Jehovah's Witness. They notice how smiley they are. It's a phenomenon that you find in cults a lot. They smile all the time. They're so smiley. They've got glassy eyes. Just nothing knocking around between those ears because everything in their life focuses on the cult. Everything. Several things strike one upon meeting Jehovah's Witnesses. The first is their cordiality. They greet you warmly and always seem to be smiling from ear to ear. Yes, that's called love bombing. They are also immaculately, I'm going to get the sentence out. They are also immaculately attired. The men wear a tie with a well-ironed shirt that's tucked into suit pants. The women generally wear a skirt and an elegant blouse. The children, too, are well-dressed, including their footwear. Order and cleanliness are also clearly important for the community's members. I mean, they're describing them as a monolith. That should tell you something about their cult status, right? That they're like nearly all identical. They all have the same patterns and behaviors and things that they do. In all the homes and meeting places of Jehovah's Witnesses that I visited, I didn't see a single item that seemed to be out of place, covered with dust, or improperly maintained. Each of these elements is backed by at least one verse from the Bible. The moment a person allows the Spirit of God to influence his life and implements the principles of the Bible, he is imbued with a certain feeling that is perhaps expressed in what you call cordiality, says Rand Kaplan, not his real name. Hang on. If you fill a person with pleasant things and with faith, his approach to life changes and becomes more positive. As for the attire, he explains, the idea is to dress in a way that honors God internally and externally. Each community around the world dresses differently according to local custom, but with dignity and relative modesty. Also, one of the principles that God demands is physical, mental, and moral cleanliness. Here's the thing about being a Jehovah's Witness in Israel, though. As I said, it's not easy. Israel actually has a serious problem with mistreating Christians, like badly. Is this... Sorry, let me just... Yeah. Check this out. Here's just one example of a Christian in Israel.
Elohim, love Israel. Praise God. God love Israel. May God have to love this.
They literally spit on her.
It's all spit. Smell.
They're trying to knock the microphone out of her hand.
Whoa, whoa.
He slapped my face.
Wow.
He slapped my face.
Hit her with a bag. This is a serious problem. It's such a serious problem that Tucker Carlson and Mike Huckabee even talked about it.
Yeah, I know. There are instances where Christians get heckled. Usually it's people who are wearing clerical robes and they're wearing crosses, and it shouldn't happen. It's horrible. It's as bad for that to happen as it is to spit on somebody wearing a kippah in New York City.
Great.
Terrible.
That's ridiculous. Okay, people wear kippahs in New York City all the time and nobody gives a shit. Okay, I'm from Manhattan. That never happens. Nobody is ever harassed or attacked or whatever for wearing a kippah in New York City. Again, Manhattan is like 50 to 60% Jewish.
It's horrible.
And actually, to be fair, there is, and I just learned this, a Jewish Israeli group that keeps track of Christians being spit on in Jerusalem because they're offended by it. And God bless them for keeping track and for being offended by it. But there are an awful lot of examples of that. And my question to you, you're against it, of course. You're a Christian clergy.
Horribly against it.
What is
but
that?
So is the prime minister, the president, the foreign minister.
Okay, nobody gives a fuck.
So is
I get it.
I think every
no one would defend
decent
that.
thinking person.
But
It's
what is
horrible.
it? Why are they spitting on
It's
Christians?
very limited. It's very, very isolated.
But where does it come from?
But for the most part, you know what? As Christians, we have freedom of movement here.
The point is, this is a serious problem, and it leads to door-knocking efforts, which is a mandate for Jehovah's Witnesses, being nearly impossible. There are also limits on when you can proselytize, where and to whom, and things like that. Here's a legal situation. Proselytizing in Israel is actually legal for adults. The anti-missionary law consists of 2 sections of the Israeli Penal Code. Section 174 forbids proselytizing by offering material benefits as inducement to convert, and Section 368 forbids persuading or encouraging a minor under 18 to change religion, which actually I'm in favor of. I like that, to be perfectly frank with you. So door-to-door work with adults is technically legal. However, it's pretty hostile. Despite the legality, by the way, this is from Decker, Pex, and Levi law firm. It's this. This is where I'm reading from. Despite the legality, the government has taken steps that encourage the perception that proselytizing is against policy. The Ministry of Interior has detained individuals suspected of being missionaries, required Baal and pledges to abstain from missionary activity, and refused them entry into the country. Suspicion of missionary activity was placed on the official list of reasons for refusal of entry to Israel. They do actively knock on doors in Israel, though. Jehovah's Witnesses do. One Israeli resident described the surprise of having 2 Jehovah's Witnesses knock on her door, according to Israel Diaries, noting that we do not expect door-to-door missionaries in Israel, quote unquote. She called the police, who said it could be considered harassment, but couldn't find anything since they'd left. But couldn't do anything since they left. There have been repeated attempts to ban it outright. In 2023, ultra-Orthodox Knesset members, which is, I believe, like their Congress, introduced a bill making religious proselytization punishable by 1 year in jail, specifically mentioning Christian missionary groups, according to the Times of Israel. Netanyahu personally intervened, tweeting, "We will not advance any law against the Christian community." That's interesting. And the reason that he actually killed the bill is because he couldn't afford to lose evangelical Christian Zionist support. So the same kind of dispensationalist theology is permeating politics in Israel, fascinatingly. Anyway, it's not fun to be a Christian in Israel, and it's certainly not fun to be a Jehovah's Witness. I do find it fascinating that we don't hear about that kind of aspect of things very often, though. Tell me what you think in the comments. All right, let me just write this down. Timestamp 118. That'll work. All right, cool. Now, what are we going to hit next? Let's see. Out of curiosity, though, actually, let me combine this with the last one. Right now, there's a war going on in Iran, and Christian Zionists are, like, kind of out of their gourds in favor of it because they think that this is going to be the start of, like, Armageddon or whatever. Jehovah's Witnesses actually put an article up on their website, War in the Middle East, What Does the Bible Say? So I just wanted to kind of glance through it, see what they had to say about it. The world is anxiously watching the conflict involving the United States, Israel, and Iran. Will the situation escalate into a wider war? Can governments avert disaster and achieve lasting peace? Those familiar with Bible prophecy may wonder whether this Middle East conflict could be the start of the Battle of Armageddon mentioned in the book of Revelation. What does the Bible say? Will governments end war in the Middle East? The Bible says, "Do not put your trust in princes, nor in a son of man who cannot bring salvation." Psalm 146:3. Time will tell whether governments will be able to achieve a measure of peace in the Middle East. However, the Bible makes it clear that no political leader, human government, or group of people can end war and bring lasting peace. Only God is able to bring an end to wars throughout the earth. Okay, this is so vapid and ridiculous. To learn more, read the Watchtower magazine entitled An End to War. How? Okay, I think I will. Let's just click that puppy and see. We'll have to read this later. Does the war in the Middle East fulfill prophecy? The Bible says you are going to hear of wars and reports of wars. Nations will rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. The current conflict in the Middle East is another event that marks the conclusion of the system of things and adds to the evidence that we are living in the last days. The wars we see today indicate that God will soon act to end war and the other problems that plague mankind. Any 5 minutes now, right? Will Armageddon begin in the Middle East? The Bible says they gathered them together to the place that is called in Hebrew Armageddon. The War of Armageddon is not a war between human governments that begins in the Middle East. It's a global war between all human governments and God. To learn more, read the article. God, they're always filling their articles. What can help us to cope in anxious times? The Bible says, do not be anxious over anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication, along with thanksgiving, let your petitions be made known to God. Jehovah God invites us to pray to him. Because God cares for us, he will hear our prayers and help us cope with our anxieties. One way he does this is by helping us to understand not only why wars persist, but also how they will end and what he will do to reverse our pain and suffering. So what I'm reading from this is they don't believe that the end is going to come from a war in the Middle East, like a lot of Christian denominations do, and that we shouldn't be anxious about it. That's interesting. At the end of the day, unfortunately, a lot of Christians do believe that that's what's going to happen, and it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy where war in the Middle East keeps fucking happening because of it. In fact, George W. Bush even asked the French president, Jacques Chirac, I believe, to help him fight the battle of Gog and Magog. Let me just... Sorry, hold on. I don't want to go through this article too, but the bottom line is he asked him to go to war with him. Here, President Jacques Chirac wanted to know what the hell President Bush had been on about in their last conversation. Bush had then said that when he looked at the Middle East, he saw Gog and Magog at work and the biblical prophecies unfolding. But who the hell were Gog and Magog? Neither Chirac nor his office had any idea, but they knew Bush was an evangelical Christian, so they asked the French Federation of Protestants, who in turn asked Professor Romer. He explained Gog and Magog were, to use theological jargon, crazy talk. They appear twice in the Old Testament, once as a name and once in a truly strange prophecy in the book of Ezekiel. The point is, all this shit going on in the Middle East is actually driven by evangelical Christian nutcases. Anyway, tell me what you think about it in the comments. It's absolutely wild. All right, 23. Okay, I'm going to use the bathroom real fast. Take me 30 seconds. While I do, I'm going to let something play. Let's see. I'm going to let this Jim Brewer thing play. He complained about American Airlines, and it went viral, apparently. It'll take me like 30 seconds. I'll be right back.
You know the airline? You ever watch the airline fights, like on video, the Frontier, and people losing it at the desk, and you sit there and you go, look at these zeros just losing their minds because they can't get out of it. Like, where are you at in life that you're losing your mind like this? Well. All right, so let me preface this by saying our daughter got what they call an externship. You know, she's going to school, and she got a job in Honolulu. And so I talked to my wife. I'm like, that's a long trip. Why don't we splurge? I'm about to go on tour. Why not check into a company and see if we can score and buy some first class tickets, right? We buy 2 round trip. Most of it's first class, not all of it. Okay, so from Honolulu to Fort Myers, Florida is all first class. I said, you know, it's a red-eye flight. For those of you who don't know what that is, the flight leaves at like 10, 11 at night. It's going to be brutal. You don't really sleep. There's some first class where it actually turns into a bed. This is not one of those. This is just your, you know, it's first class. And there's 2 seats, and there's only 2 seat aisles. And we're like, listen, it's not a bed, but heck, it's first class. Hopefully we'll get some sleep from Honolulu to Phoenix. Now, so this was, I don't know, a month and a half ago, at least when I bought the tickets. Something like that, at least a month and a half ago. So still, these are thousands of dollars. This isn't like, oh, wow, it's thousands of dollars. And my wife was like, Jim, you know, it's a lot. I said, listen, it's our daughter. Who cares? What are we holding it for? Let's do it. Okay. So we finish our trip. We have a great trip with our daughter, and we're ready to come home. We show up at the now. 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, American Airlines like, hey, would you in part of your first class? Are you ready to pre-order your meal? I'm like, oh my God, this is amazing. We're gonna order our. And I remember
he's such an idiot.
With you, I'm like, what do you want? We could have steak, or we could have chicken, or we could have this. So we pre-ordered our meals. We're sitting in one D and F. So there's one A and B, and for some reason not C and D, it's D and F. All right. So we show up, we drop off the rent-a-car, we check out of our place, we walk up to the counter. We're not even checking bags. And we're like, okay, we'll sleep a little bit. We'll land in Phoenix. I think we got there at about 6, 7 a.m., something like that. It was an ugly hour. Whatever it was ugly. And then we had a small layover, and then from Phoenix, we go to Fort Myers. Well, we show up there, and I'm bantering with my wife, and people are showing up, and you could see more people are showing up because the plane's getting ready to take off. And you know when you're waiting to take off, people are showing. Now, there's also, I notice, a crew of American airline workers that are showing up. So clearly they're going to be on the plane. And I see the 2 guys behind the counter just, you know, clicking away, and, you know, they're getting them their seats. Now,
we're going to continue in just a second. I'm just testing something real fast.
I know for a fact, F-A-C-T, I am personal friends with an American airline captain. There's pilots, and then there's captains. Captain's a different level, even though they're a pilot. I'm also a good friend with 2 flight attendants who tell me the way it works is they're never, when they show up, they're not guaranteed to be on a flight, period. If they got to go on a different flight, they're not, even in uniform, they're not guaranteed. They have to try to find open seating. So
that's called standby. My mom had standby tickets that we could fly anywhere when I was little, because she was like a booking agent for United or whatever.
If you overbook a flight, let me tell you something. Many of us have, you know, when you buy a ticket and you don't get a seat assignment, that means they overbooked the flight. And they say, see the counter or see the person. That's when you know, oh, God, they overbooked it. I've been through that multiple times.
Yeah, because like 10% of people won't show up. So they sell 10% more tickets, and they try to get a completely full flight. And if everybody shows up, then I don't want to go down this road because it really infuriates the fucking shit out of me. Do you know why you get tired on airplanes? Because they're not pumping enough oxygen into the cabin. You're oxygen deprived. That's why you're so sleepy on airplanes, really. Now, there's this physics thing that makes it difficult to maintain pressure at a certain altitude or whatever, but they could absolutely pump more oxygen into that fucking cabin, and you would not be tired. We're not breathing the oxygen from the outside. They have oxygen tanks that they feed into the cabin. There's not enough oxygen in the atmosphere at the levels that we're flying for humans to survive anyway. They're not pumping enough oxygen into the cabin. That's why you're tired. There should be a standard level of comfortability on airplanes, and it pisses me off so fucking much.
Is my face turning red? Because it feels like it's hot right now in my ears. And this is what I want to explain to American Airlines, what they are causing me and what they have caused my wife and I. So
me and my wife, but okay.
With that said, and I've showed up at places and I go, hey, I noticed I don't have a seat assigned. I'm like, well, we're overbooked. Would you? And that's when you hear, if anyone would like to volunteer their seats, we'll give you a voucher. That means they overbooked. Overbooked. Is there any volunteers? Because we're overbooked. Well, there's a guy who's a pilot for American Airlines, and he's got nice little flowers. He's got flowers. Mary's the flower guy. And my wife was looking, going, oh, wow, I didn't think you can bring flowers on it. I don't know.
Why the fuck couldn't you bring flowers on an airplane? Okay.
What kind of, and I said, yeah, you should ask him. Did you ever even, no. But he was funny, looked like, but I noticed this pilot and the guy behind the counter, they were doing this a lot. And he was like, the guy behind the thing was doing this. And I was like, oh, he's trying to get him a seat. Little did I know. Now.
He's a QAnoner, by the way. And he talked about me on his channel, actually, a while back. I talked about him on mine, and he found it. And then he talked about it on his.
Once you book your flight in first class and you picked your ticket and you have your boarding pass, your paid ticket for first class, you're in. There's no if, and, two, buts about it. You're in. Unless the president shows up. For whatever reason, he'd be flying American. So we're literally, they're like, okay, they're letting in our, military, and if you got kids, and all of a sudden we hear, James and Diana Brewer, can you please come see James and Diana Brewer? And we looked at each other, and we're like, what are we getting, upgrade to fly the plane? Like, what can, now, this is how goofy I am. I had a couple people come up like, hey, man, I think you're so funny. Can I get a picture with you? And I'm thinking, I don't know what I'm thinking. I'm thinking maybe the guy knows. I don't know. So
I actually, I watched Jim Brewer when I was younger. I really liked his stuff.
We walk up, and I, naive as I go, oh, boy, what, are we in trouble or something? And he goes, no, not in trouble. We just downgrade you to row 18. What are you talking about? What are you talking? He goes, we had to downgrade you to. I said, hold on a second. He goes, we had to take you out of first class. And what do you mean you had to take us out of first class? What are you talking about? He goes, well, we overbooked. And when you overbook, you can't overbook first class. He goes, no.
You can, but you have to pay those people back, and it has to be voluntary.
And he was so sheepish. He was so sheepish. Am I exaggerating? He would not make eye contact. And he goes, we overbooked. I went, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. You have a crew here. Did you put one of your crew members in my seat? And he goes, I can't tell you whose. I can't tell you whose seat. And my wife goes, I want to speak to a supervisor. He goes, I am the supervisor. And we said, well, then no, I have a booked first class paid ticket. We're not leaving. He goes, it's too late. I already changed the tickets. And I went, what? How do you? So Long Island Jimmy. Long Island Jimmy's going, can I talk to this guy for a minute? Oh, what's your name? Mark. You're gonna sit with me in my seat, Mark. Who's sitting there? Who is sitting in 1D&F right now? Can I speak to you for a second? Because I know you're here. Long Island Jimmy got to this part, and I started barking so people can hear me. I went, so you're telling me you're taking a paid first-class customer and please tell me at least that you have the decency to put me in an exit row or bulkhead. He goes, no, they're taken. Of course they're taken. They're taken by American Airline employees.
They're taken because they're overbooked, of course. This isn't going to be part of the stream or this won't be a final video. I'm just interested in this.
Which we got to see when we got on the plane. This is why, I know he was lying. His name was Mark. Mark in Honolulu, the supervisor.
Dox him with the, okay.
He knows my name. Mark knows my name because Mark took my money that I paid for my family, for my wife. I go out to work for me. He took it and gave it to one of his buddies that work for American Airlines. Why do I know that? Because I saw the guy pulled off and bro. So now, this is why this is foul. This is why this is layers of foul. We got to get home. He knew to wait to the very last second. That's number one. Number two, he didn't even have options when we showed up. It was just, hey man, sorry you booked first. Now you're in 18A and B for the next 6 hours flying like this on your red eye.
You know what I discovered a while back? By the way, Darkest Guardian, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. That's awesome. I discovered, in addition to the oxygen thing, you know how they go through that whole rigmarole where they say, if we're in an emergency landing, then put your, lean forward, put your head in your lap, and put your arms under your legs or whatever, so on and so forth. I discovered that, all right, I was actually in an emergency landing a while back. It was just a normal flight. I was going to a conference, or something. I don't even remember. Or maybe I was going to visit, my wife's family. And we were flying. Basically, they get on the intercom and they said, we're going to have to make an emergency landing. And they go through the whole thing. Put your head in your lap and all of that and stay down. And I pull my phone out and start filming, and I have this on video. It's 10 minutes of video, basically, pointing out the window. It was 45 minutes total. I was pointing the phone out the window. We were literally, for 45 minutes, flying so low that I had cell service, and I could see the ground. We were, I don't know how high up, maybe 1,000 feet above the ground or something. It was over forest and stuff. We were entirely too low for 45 minutes. Way too fucking low. It was very scary. I believed I was going to die. But we landed safe and sound. And everybody clapped when we landed. Anyway, I discovered that you can't lay your head in your lap on airplanes. You can't. It's literally impossible to do. Because the seats are so close together. I'm 140 pounds, okay? I'm not that big. And I couldn't put my head in my lap as instructed. They've literally made it impossible to follow their safety guidelines because the seats are so crammed together and tiny and compact. You literally cannot follow safety guidelines. Why the fuck are we fighting a war in Iran right now instead of straightening out bullshit like that. Just real basic shit that we should be able to do. Follow safety guidelines. That is fucking insane and should be illegal. And I don't mean that it's close. Like, I couldn't quite get there. I mean, it was literally not even possible. Next time you're on a plane, try doing that. Try laying your head in your lap and see. It is impossible to follow their safety guidelines.
Suck it. If he said that, I would have had more respect. My wife goes, this is the audacity of Mark the supervisor, an American Airlines employee in Honolulu. And he goes, my wife goes, well, can you get us on a flight? What about tomorrow's flight? I said, I don't want to fly tomorrow. We're booked. And he goes, all right, let me see what I can do. Oh, I can get you on tomorrow night's flight. And we went, great. First class. He didn't even have the audacity to say no. And he was going to, this is what he said. He goes, no, it's not first class, but it's economy plus. Oh, whoopee-doo. Oh, wow. Thank you, Mark. You're so kind. Hey, who wants a first-class ticket for a couple $1,000s when I could be sitting in economy plus? Well, your employees in my seat drinking my drinks and eating my food. Thank you, American Mark. Thank you, American Airlines. You're so kind. So this guy...
This would infuriate me, honestly. I fucking hate airlines so goddamn much. I hate flying, especially after that emergency landing. It was scary, dude. Seriously. I cannot, articulate how scary that was. I believed that I was going to die. And I just hate airplanes now. I used to love them, and I absolutely hate them now. I see everything about them as bad. Not enough oxygen in the cabin, which they could fix. Not enough space for me to literally follow safety instructions. It's just awful. Everything about them are fucking awful.
He goes like this. He goes,
They stole his money, right? Didn't they steal his fucking money? He paid thousands of dollars for first class tickets, and they put him in economy, thus stealing from him. Isn't that what just happened?
I could sit you in economy plus. He has the audacity. He goes, it's actually quite nice in economy. And then he goes like this, and he goes, the only issue, besides this economy plus, even though you paid for first class, is I can't sit you guys together. Oh, this guy's just the greatest supervisor I ever. I tell you, American Airlines really knows how to get their employees to really help out their preferred customers. You're so with that said, I go, no. Absolutely not. He goes, well, I can give you a $500 voucher. $500 voucher for thousands of dollars for 2 first-class tickets that...
They should have asked first-class passengers if they would be willing to give up their seats and refunded them fully if they did.
I splurged to treat me and my wife before I'm going away for 3 months. My blood is through the roof. Every 10 minutes, she's going, Jim. And I went, Long Island Jimmy's like, just 2 minutes. Let me out for 2 minutes. That's all I want. Right? So
I would appreciate it if he stopped blowing in the microphone. Anyway, they stole his money straight up, and that fucking infuriates me. I cannot stand airlines. They are fucking worthless. I'm sorry, I'm going on a soapbox for a minute. There should be a standard level of comfortability with airplanes, with healthcare, with everything. There should be a standard, right? You shouldn't be allowed to charge people $30,000 before they're allowed to use your medical insurance. If they're paying for medical insurance, it should insure them. It should cover it. You shouldn't have to pay a fucking deductible. If you're on an airplane, you should be able to follow safety instructions. You should be able to sit comfortably. All the seats should be like the first class seats. And the first class seats should be fucking beds. There should be a standard level of comfortability with this shit. You know, how far are we going to let them go with this? Are we going to allow them, the airlines that is, to charge people $50 for standing room only? There should be nobody on any airplanes that have standing room only. That shouldn't exist. It's being discussed right now. Airlines are trying to push this through. Everybody should have a seat. It should be a comfortable seat, and we'll work out the price later. We will pass legislation to force them not to price gouge us later. It really infuriates me, man. Anyway, sorry. Just really frustrating. Okay. Let's see. This one is Christian nationalism. Actually, let's do Joel Webbon. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, yeah, I had pastor arrested. 4. So I have 4 episodes so far. Let's do Joel Webbon first. And then this one. All right, awesome. This is Joel Webbon, who said something truly psychotic. Listen to this. He's a Christian nationalist, a Nazi, you know, the type.
You know, for myself as a Christian and a pastor, like I always want to be able to account for things biblically, you know. And one of the passages that I think of, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. I'm sure you're probably familiar, but in Titus, the very beginning of, you know, Paul's letter to Titus, kind of like Timothy, another young man in the faith. He opens up by saying, "This is why I left you in Crete, the Isle of Crete, to put what remains in order, appointing elders."
Shit, I didn't realize he's talking to Nick Fuentes here. Hold on. Wait. Let me grab this. I'm grabbing this. We're going to watch this later. Wait. No, this is some other guy watching it. All right, I'll find it and we'll watch it, the whole thing on Wednesday. If you want to see the whole entire episode, check it out on my Unfiltered YouTube channel, Owen Unfiltered, on Wednesday.
Elders in all the churches. And he goes in the first chapter into the qualifications for an elder in the church. And then a little later in the letter to Titus, and this is all in the New Testament, Paul... he doesn't actually say it himself, but he's quoting one of the Cretan prophets. He says, "One of your own said, all Cretans are gluttons, liars, and lazy beasts."
So he's talking about racism in the Bible. Believe it or not, racism didn't actually exist until the 1700s, give or take. They had ethnocentrism, where they believed that their ethnicity was better. The Greeks talked about barbarians, which are outsiders, non-Greek people, you know, thousands of years ago. And they're talking about the Cretes and people like that. But racism, in the sense that, like, racial ideology exists, it didn't exist until the 1700s, particularly with Carl Linnaeus, who's, I believe, a botanist who was studying heredity. Of course, Darwin and the theory of evolution didn't come along until like the 1850s, 1860s. But before Darwin, Carl Linnaeus was establishing the concept of heredity and genetics and lineage and passing things down from parent to child. And racial ideology formed from that concept, from Carl Linnaeus. So what he's trying to do here is he's trying to conflate racism with what was going on back then. And of course, ancient Israelites had a problem with and genocided Canaanites and Hittites and Ammonites and whoever else. But racial theory or conspiracy, racial ideology is fairly new in the grand scheme of things.
But then he does say, and this is true. It's like, based Apostle Paul, so like, but here's the thing. I think you have to hold in tension, to be fair. So the quote from a Cretan prophet is, hey, I'm Cretan myself, but let's be honest, Cretans suck, and they suck in particular ways, not just generally, but they're known for these particular things. They're lazy. They're beastly, so maybe low, impulse control.
So what he's doing is establishing that racial hatred is biblical, and that he has a valid reason to hate black people and hate Jews and hate Mexicans and whoever else. That's, God, what a world we have found ourselves in.
They're impulsive, and they're gluttons, so indulgent, and dishonest, so these kinds of things. And the Apostle Paul validates that and says, he nailed it. This is true. Yet, holding it in tension at the very same time, the opening to the letters, this is why I left you in Crete, to put what remains in order, appointing elders in all the churches. And here are the qualifications for being an elder, a pastor, a bishop in the church of Christ. Well, who is Titus going to find to meet these qualifications to appoint as elders in Cretan churches? Cretans. So I take that to mean like the Apostle Paul on the one hand is saying in general, right, which is different than universal, but in general, the Cretans, as a people collectively, are not great. And not just in a general sense, like generally, but not in a vague sense, but in these particular areas, there are particular sins that are besetting and generally true of the Cretan people as a whole, not just this one Cretan as an individual, but no, you could actually describe the Cretans collectively in these negative ways, and you would be generally right. And yet, one, because that's general, not universal, there will always be exceptions. And two, because of the power of the gospel, Christ actually changes hearts. I think that there will be some Cretans that will be fit to be ministers. And this is why I left you there, to put that. And
so is he saying that he thinks that there are some cases where black people are fit to be ministers, but only through the grace of God, most black people are inferior genetically? I think that's what he's saying. What the fuck?
I feel like we can do, and
by the way, I didn't get this video from like Right Wing Watch or some other left-leaning organization. I got this from Joel Webbin. He put this out there because he believed that he was on solid enough ground that he could release this. This is him including the context, okay? This is not a contextless clip that some left-wing libtard or whatever is taking out of context. That's not what this is. He is proud of what he's saying here and believes it's a biblical message that people should be hearing. That is psychotic.
Ministers. And this is why I left you there, to put that. And I feel like we can do, and I can do that, honestly, I can do it with Europeans. And I wouldn't say historically, I wouldn't say King Alfred is what I'm about to, describe white people, but today, I would say, and I could say all people, and you have to understand the disclaimer, all people, a generalization. Of course, there are exceptions, but in a general sense, I would say all white people are suicidal, toxic empathy, and cowardly. And that's why the West is falling apart. And then I feel like I could also say all black people are impulsive, lazy. Like I could list some particular sins. And again, in general, of course there are exceptions. I'm not thinking of Thomas Sowell, not thinking of Clarence Thomas. And I think I could also, to go one step further, say all Jews are subversive. And, there would, of course, be some exceptions there as well. But the point
That is insane. What the fuck, dude? All black people are lazy and impulsive, and all Jews are what?
To say all Jews are subversive.
Are subversive. See, here's the root of the problem. It's the result of one of two things, okay? That you see any kind of pattern in absolutely anything. There are disparities in certain crime statistics between the black community and the white community, and it is the result of one of two things. Either it's a social issue that was caused by society in one way or another, and if that's the case, it can be fixed. You know, if there are higher crime statistics, what's the number one indicator of crime? Poverty. So we rise these communities up out of poverty. We create a jobs program. We raise minimum wage. We clean up their neighborhoods that are predominantly black, and we fix the roads, and we bring in new businesses and things. Not gentrification, but fixing up the neighborhoods and cleaning them up and making them nicer. So it's either that, it's either a societal problem, a social problem that can be fixed, or it's genetics, in which case you're a Nazi, because that's what the Nazis believed incorrectly. Now, Joel Webben here is saying that it's because he's a Nazi. He's saying he's a Nazi here, right? Which we knew. But either way you look at it, in any context, the average black person that you come across isn't going to be dangerous. The vast majority of people in the black community or in any minority group are not dangerous, like personally. Do you know that men are 800% more likely to commit a violent crime against you than women? Does Joel Webben put his hand on his gun anytime a man walks in? Of course not. Because the vast majority of men that you come across aren't going to be dangerous to you. The vast majority of the time, people aren't going to be a threat. The problem is that Joel Webben is not just generalizing, but recognizing exceptions, is that it's that the people who are actually committing the crimes are the exceptions. But, you know, being the Nazi that he is, I guess he just doesn't care. He just wants to call Jews subversive and black people lazy and impulsive, which are apparently sins. I don't remember hearing about the sin of impulsivity.
And, you know, there would, of course, be some exceptions there as well. But the point is, I think the Bible actually has a category for that.
Anyway, like I said, this is from Joel Webben. Like, he put this out there. He believed that this was good and represented his views adequately. Let me show you another clip from Joel Webben. Hang on, let me find.
And we should, Pastor Joel Webben, amazing. Adopt a distinct.
Hold on. There's classrooms. I'm sorry, I'm just looking here. Let me just find. Hitler was a hero. Wait.
It was war.
Yeah, here we go. Joel Webben goes on Stu Peters' TV show or whatever, his program, his podcast. And if you don't know Stu Peters, he is an actual self-avowed Hitler-loving Nazi. Like, he posts things like, where is it? He posts things like this on the twit. Before Mein Kampf, he was a loser, I guess, is what he's trying to say. And after Mein Kampf, He's standing in front of a private jet and everything else. He's proud of being a Nazi, basically, is the point here. Nope. I'm sorry. 1 second. I'm looking for the right. Is this? No, that's not what I was looking for. Anyway, let me just show you Joel Webbin and Stu Peters together here. It's Psychotic. Is this the right one? Yes, this is the right one. And then 214. Here you go. This is Joel Webbin on Stu Peters' program.
Adopt a distinctly Christian preamble, and then all the 10 Commandments must be legislated.
He's describing how he intends to change the Constitution when he gets in power.
10 Commandments must be legislated. What we've done is we thought the second table of the law, so second table meaning Commandments 5 through 10, the commandments of God that pertain to our horizontal relationship with our neighbor, like don't steal, don't murder, these kinds of things. We think that should be legislated by the civil magistrate, but the first table of the law, not that.
All right. The first 4 commandments have nothing to do with government, shouldn't even be in there, and don't even apply to Christians. Things like don't make a graven image. You can't do artwork anymore. Don't follow the Sabbath. You're supposed to follow the Sabbath. Christians don't do that. Love. What's the first one? You shall have no other gods before me. The first commandment contradicts the First Amendment. You can have one or the other. It's things like that. They don't make any sense in the context of the United States at all. So he's saying we don't just want to legislate like basic things like don't lie, don't steal, whatever. He wants to legislate the first 4 commandments as well, apparently.
But the first table of the law, not that. But that's not true. And I'm not just talking about Old Covenant Israel in the Old Testament. You look at King Alfred. You look at Constantine. You look at Richard the Lionheart. You look at Duke Godfrey, who chopped a Turk in half.
That's funny, right? Chopped a Turk in half. Oh,
Lionheart. You look at Duke Godfrey, who chopped a Turk in half.
Oh, that's very funny, Joel Webbin. I'm laughing along with you, sir.
Diagonally with one swing of the sword. These guys, they legislated both tables of the law. That's where all the prosperity comes from, because you can't hang in midair these second table commandments of don't steal from your neighbor apart from have no other gods before me. Idolatry is the fountainhead of the stream. You cannot have an idolatrous people and yet somehow have a moral people.
I find it fascinating that Joel Webbin is even talking about the 10 Commandments, because in Nazi Germany, I've done so much research into this, it's ridiculous. I know a lot about this subject. I wrote a book about it. Was Hitler an Atheist? It's on Amazon and Audible if you want to find it. But the Nazis actually created their own denomination of Christianity that they called the German Christians, the Deutsche Christen. They wanted to name it the Christian Nationalists, but Hitler vetoed it because it wasn't propagandistic enough. He wanted it to be a larger umbrella than that. Anyway, in their denomination of Christianity, they excluded basically all the Jewish texts. They cut out the Old Testament. They cut out like Malachi and a whole bunch of other, even New Testament stuff. Anything that was written by, quote unquote, that Rabbi Paul was gone. They kept the Gospels and some other stuff. The point is that I'm surprised that him being a neo-Nazi is actually embracing some of this stuff. But the point is, though, that he went on Stu Peters. He knows Stu Peters. He has worked with him and he agrees with him. Now let me show you Stu Peters.
They have to say these outlandish things to make up for the fact that if it weren't for this sort of ridiculous cartoonish death narrative that we've been sold, a lot of...
He's talking about the Holocaust, this ridiculous outlandish death narrative, he says.
people would be looking at the 1930s through 1940s saying, not only does this make a lot of sense, not only does this kind of all add up and history play itself out in the way that we'd expect it to, but there's a lot of similarities to today. And you can't afford to have people start to make those connections. So they come in with this just outlandish narrative where if you put it in a movie, people would say, I didn't like that movie because I just thought it was a little too cartoonish. I didn't think it was realistic. And that's the narrative we've been sold. And to make Hitler out to be this obscene monster, that's the only way they can essentially remedy this story so that you can say it's clear who the bad guys were and it's clear who the good guys were. Because when you take that part out of the narrative, then it's not really as clear who the evil ones are.
That's right.
So you have to make them evil in order to sell people this story. And now, just as popular culture wise, very clear who the evil one is. Obviously, the evil one is Hitler, and very clear who the good guys are. It's clearly, the Jewish people and the Allies who came in to defeat Hitler. But is that really what the story is?
Mm-hmm. Don't you dare question it. But the writing is on the wall. Those people were pushed to a breaking point, and they broke. And, as for these Nazi book burnings, as they're called, those people did what any reasonable people would do.
He's saying those people were pushed to a breaking point. The Nazis. He's saying the Nazis were pushed to a breaking point and they broke. And the Nazis did what any reasonable person would do, he said just now. That is fucking evil. I'm sorry. It's evil. I'm not sorry. You are a piece of shit, Stu Peters.
They were faced with a problem, and they came up with a reasonable solution.
Stu Peters shares a lot of beliefs with Joe Webbin, and obviously, again, they work together, like I said. Webbin was on Stu Peters' program. How about this one?
This country doesn't have a racism problem. We don't have a gun problem. We don't have a poverty problem that's causing mass violence. What we have here is a black problem. We have a problem with black crime. This is a group of people that comprises 12 to 13% of the entire United States population, but commits more than half of all of its violent crime.
That's a lie. That's not true. That's fabricated. At best, these people have to cherry pick very specific statistics to try to support their position. It's not half of violent crimes. And again, like I said earlier, there's a reason that there's any disproportionality in this, and the reason is social problems that can be fixed. And in addition to that, men commit 800% more violent crimes than women. But you don't shrink away. You don't hide in a corner. You don't grab your gun when a man walks in the room, because the vast majority of the time, your interactions with men are going to be fine. He wants to find reasons to fucking hate black people and Jews, and he's found it.
It was war. Horrific things happened. Lots of people died. It was World War II. I don't believe that World War II happened as a result of the Holocaust. I don't believe that that was the reason for the war. And I'm asking a lot of questions about that. People don't like when I ask a lot of questions about that.
No, I have no problem if he asks questions. I ask questions. Everybody has questions. You aren't accepting the answers when they're given to you. And you are positing different answers that are not reflected by reality. That's the problem.
Hitler may have been an evil dictator, a ruthless person that murdered millions of people. I don't know, because of the propaganda that surrounds every war. But for this, wasn't he a hero? Wasn't Hitler doing the right thing when he ordered these books to be burned and these places to be stormed by force?
Of course, because gay people and Jews and blacks are the problem, right? Is that what it is?
Well,
he just said, wasn't Hitler a hero for what he did? That's what he just said, right? I mean, this was about Joel Webbin originally, but I'm just trying to make a point that Nick Fuentes, Joel Webbin, Stu Peters, they're three peas in a pod. They all work together. They know each other. They believe the same things. They're all fucking scumbags, every last one of them. Hang on.
So
wait 1 second. And then he has the twig and berries to go on there on Fresh and Fit and pretend like he didn't say what he just said, what we just heard him say.
yesterday, Newsweek called me a pro-Hitler Nazi.
He absolutely is, obviously.
Raw Story called me a pro-Hitler Nazi. I don't know how these people get away. I mean, they said that I was a Holocaust denier.
He absolutely is, without question.
Which is completely false, emphatically false. As a matter of fact, they made up a quote out of whole cloth and said, Stu Peters said, quote, Hitler is a hero. I have never said any such thing.
He obviously did. We heard it.
And they can print this stuff with impunity because the hubris is so, because there's no accountability. And so they did this as a result of me announcing the Extreme Accountability event.
When he says there's no accountability, when he says extreme accountability event, what he means is hang them from a rope until they are dead, quote unquote, his words. He wants to hang people from a rope who he doesn't like, black people, Jews, whoever. Here you go. He explains extreme accountability right here.
So we're going to drag Tony Fauci out of retirement. We're going to put him in the docket. We will force him to confront his lies about gain-of-function research. We will read off every single one of the emails that he sent exposing the research that he funded at that bioweapons lab called...
It's all lies, obviously. I'm sure I don't even need to say that. There was no bioweapons lab. There was no, like, manufacturing of COVID or whatever, but okay.
That he sent exposing the research that he funded at that bioweapons lab called the Wuhan Institute of Virology. We'll expose all of the emails he sent organizing and promoting the lies that covered it all up. And we will hold him accountable for the millions of lives that his illegal research cost. And when he is convicted, after a short and fast but thorough trial, he will hang from a length of thick rope until he is dead.
So, monster is the bottom line. Monster. They're all monsters. Every last one of them. Nick Fuentes, this dude, all of their followers, they're all fucking monsters. And I don't know how we got to the point in the United States where it's acceptable to even hint at being a fan of Hitler or whatever, but what the fuck? This is insane, disturbing, wild, unacceptable. He is absolutely calling for murder here. What the fuck? Tell me what you think in the comments. Okay, 140 to... Wait, 151, 213. Included not a video. All right, awesome. 215. Actually, let's hit Christian nationalism next. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, good. Check this out. Christian nationalism has captured the Republican Party. This is by Hemant Mehta on the Friendly Atheist website. I just want to give this a read and see what it has to say. It's fascinating. It's got statistics in it and stuff. The Republican Party is rapidly becoming a Christian nationalist organization, according to a new analysis from PRRI. The polling group found that while about 1/3 of Americans are adherents or sympathizers of Christian nationalism, the number jumps to 56% among Republicans. It's a sign that the Republicans will continue ignoring the Constitution and church-state separation while doubling down on the false beliefs that were founded as a... while doubling down on the false beliefs that we were founded as a Christian nation and should be governed by whatever conservative claim are Christian values. And should be governed by whatever conservative claim and should be governed by whatever conservatives claim are Christian values. I would add that these same people have no problem ignoring the blatant rejection of those values by their own political leaders, whether we're talking about affairs, corruption, or whatever else Ken Paxton is up to today. That's before we even get into how all these people are attempting to brush aside the Epstein-Trump scandal. So take a look at some of these figures. This is pretty interesting. Figure 3, who are more likely to support Christian nationalism by party affiliation? Among all Americans, 11% consider themselves Christian nationalist. 21% consider themselves sympathizers. 4% skipped or don't know. 37% are skeptical, and 27% reject it outright. Among Republicans, 21% are adherents to Christian nationalism. 35% are sympathizers. 34% are skeptical. 6% reject it. Among independents, 7% adhere. 18% sympathize. 44% are skeptical. 28% reject it. By the way, this is from February 28th to December 8th, 2025. That's when this poll was taken. Among Democrats, 5% are Christian nationalists, 12% sympathize, 34% are skeptical, 48% reject. The percentages of Americans who support or reject Christian nationalism have held relatively steady for the past few years. But because it's becoming more possible to live in your own reality bubble, we can now see precisely where the extremism is fomenting. Among those who watch far-right news, 65% are Christian nationalists, a number that's 10% higher than those who only stick to Fox News. People who get their news from the radio, where it's easy to find right-wing commentators, are far more likely to be Christian nationalists than those who get their news from newspapers. Luckily for us, or let me rephrase, lucky for us, TV broadcasts and radio broadcasts are kind of dying out in favor of the internet. Are we lucky for that? I guess it's hard to tell. Here's another figure. Who are more likely to support Christian nationalism by media consumption? The highest one, far-right news, 34% are adherents. The lowest, newspapers at 4%. That is very interesting. The percentages of Americans who support or reject... Wait, did I read this? No. The percentages of Americans who support or reject Christian nationalism have held relatively steady for the past few years, but because it's becoming more possible to live... Oh, no, we did read this. Okay, disregard. While the Bible Belt still exists, there are pockets of the country where support for Christian nationalism is much higher than you might think. This is an interesting map. If you're just listening to the audio version and not watching... the Bible Belt is very, very blue. And blue is like 60% or more. Support for Christian nationalism, adherents and sympathizers by state. Mississippi and Arkansas, Oklahoma, West Virginia, and Wyoming appear to be the deepest kind of Christian nationalist stronghold. Same for Alaska. That one is also very blue. New York, Massachusetts, Illinois, California, Washington... Those seem to be on the lighter side. Arkansas has the highest percentage of adherents and sympathizers, with 54%, but West Virginia and Wyoming aren't far behind. You might think Texas is full of them, but it's only at 38%, suggesting in a different way that Texas is not so much a red state as a non-voting state where gerrymandering is in full force. Yeah, totally. On the other end, Massachusetts wins the award for having the smallest proportion of Christian nationalists with only 15%. So how does all this play into their politics? For one thing, those who support Christian nationalism are also more likely to support political violence. 30% of adherents say violence may be justified to save our country, which is disturbing in part because they're much more susceptible to bad arguments. It wouldn't take much to convince a Christian extremist that his country is being taken from him and the enemies are brown people, immigrants, and anyone perceived as an other. Hell, we just saw that play out in Minnesota. The Department of Defense is now practically a church with its own military and access to nuclear weapons. Yeah, I agree. That's fucking disturbing. Honestly, though, firmly believe every one of these fucking people are going to pay the price politically for what's happening right now. They are going to spend the rest of their lives in prison, the higher ups. Trump, probably not, but Pam Bondi, Elon Musk, Stephen Miller, and especially all of the ICE people, they are all fucked. And Nick Fuentes did this whole episode on this very subject the other day. They are all fucked. It feels hopeless sometimes. These people are going to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Mark my words. All right, hang on. 1 second. Okay, sorry. Support for political violence by Christian nationalism groups. Somehow those disturbingly high numbers for supporters of Christian nationalism are lower than they were when Joe Biden was president, proving my point that they'll point to damn near anything as evidence for their predetermined conclusion. Now, regarding this figure 15, support for political violence by Christian nationalism groups. This one is insane. Percent who blank that because things have gotten so far off track, true American patriots may have to resort to violence in order to save our country. Percent of all Americans that believe that, 4% completely agree that violence is acceptable because the country's gotten so far off track. Among Christian nationalism adherents, 11%. Completely agree with that sentiment. That is insane. Those same adherents say they believe Trump should be allowed to act as a dictator, with 73% saying they agree that Trump is a strong leader who should be given the power he needs to restore America's greatness. What happened to our core values as Americans? Our value of free speech, of freedom of religion, and keeping religion out of government. What happened to all of that? What happened to the value of democracy? People don't believe in democracy anymore. It's insane. Newsmax and Fox News have done a number on the American people. What can we take away from all this information? I would argue that this puts a lot of pressure on Christian pastors who are losing their grip on their own congregations. Are they interested in preaching the message of Jesus, or do they want to brand themselves as extensions of the Republican Party? It can't be both, because the messages stand in direct opposition to each other. If pastors are unwilling to call out cruelty in the name of their faith, and they have plenty of opportunities to do it under this administration, then they deserve to have their religion hijacked by political extremists who have no problem waving around a Bible they've never read. It also shows us that despite the high percentages of Christian nationalists, there are a hell of a lot more of us who reject it entirely. We need to band together to defeat this scourge because it's the best option for everyone else. That means filing more lawsuits against the administration in coordination with groups that don't necessarily share our secular ideology. That means voting for candidates who take strong stands against using religion as a political weapon. That means demanding politicians on the fence pick a damn side. Like James Tallarico, he is, I believe, a pastor and is very anti-Christian nationalist. The dude is the shit. He's in Texas, and he's running for Senate, like federal senator in Texas. And I don't know. I hope he wins. Unfortunately, Jasmine Crockett is running against him, and I like both of them. Oh, here you go. He mentions him. As James Tallarico showed during his censored interview with Stephen Colbert this week, rejecting Christian nationalism doesn't have to be anti-Christian in any way. You can be a person of faith who opposes what ignorant bigots do in the name of your God. The irony in all this is that America is more diverse and less religious than ever before. That's why Christian nationalists are desperately clinging to power in any way they can. Hypocrisy be damned. They're willing to give up any semblance of morality in order to hold on to whatever power they have left because they're incapable of actually persuading people to come to their side. That's why they're waging wars, real and symbolic, against the people who pose a threat to their top spot in the national hierarchy. There are some really psychotic Christian nationalists out there too. It's insane. Not that supporters of that ideology will care, but the Constitution is unambiguous about religion and politics. There's no religious test for public office, no official national religion, and no loophole that allows politicians to privilege one faith over all others or faith over non-faith. Yet more than half of Republicans now openly embrace the opposite. In that sense, the flag wavers and Bible enthusiasts are the least patriotic people in the country. Don't let them hear you say that. They're also the worst Christians by their own standards. The same people who want the Ten Commandments to go up in public schools while passing legislation to enshrine their Christian values in the law constantly excuse contradictory behavior from their own side. They don't give a shit about integrity, humility, or honesty. All that matters is power. They don't use the Bible as a sacred text. They use it as they use it as political branding. Literally. Yeah, I mean, look at Trump's Bibles, the Trump Bible. And when asked what Trump's favorite Bible verse was, he couldn't tell you. When asked if he was an Old Testament or a New Testament guy, he couldn't tell you. He said both. He didn't put his hand on the Bible. He's cheated on every wife he's ever been with. They don't match up with their supposed values in any way, shape, or form. Hell, one of Trump's spiritual advisory team members or whatever, Robert Morris, I just did a video about him taking advantage of children and going to prison for it, like for 6 months or something, recently. The people promoting Christian nationalism are furious that the country, when left to its own devices, is becoming more diverse, secular, and better in so many ways. And they're determined to put a stop to it. If that means taking the whole country down with them, so be it. So they will gladly torch the Constitution, ban books, make healthcare inaccessible to so many, and use the military to go after peaceful protesters because it's the only way they can impose their will on others. No one wants what they're selling, so they'll force it on us any way they can. They can't inspire, so they intimidate. Not to mention the Iran situation. A lot of Christian nationalists right now, especially Greg Locke, are saying that we're doing this so that we can enter Iran and evangelize to them. That's what Greg Locke said. But Christian nationalism, much like Christianity itself, is based on the idea that resistance is futile and Jesus will eventually win. They want to wear us down. Nothing about their vision is inevitable, though. We just need more people willing to fight back. That means Christians who oppose what's being done in the name of their faith should be on the front lines rejecting this use of their religion to destroy everything worth saving about this country. I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I think everybody from the top to the bottom is going to spend the rest of their lives in federal prison. Like all of the people involved in helping Trump do all of the shit that he's doing. I believe that they are fucked. Including every ICE official. I believe that they're going to federal prison. Maybe not everyone, but many of them will be. Tell me what you think in the comments. Trump can't protect them forever. All right, let's see. So that was 229. Perfect. All right, awesome. Checking through. All right, well, I guess I'm going to call it there, guys. Appreciate you hanging out with me. It's been fun. I will see you guys hopefully on Wednesday on my Unfiltered channel, okay? All right, have a good one, everybody.